Sleepy Hollow, Dark Rider, the Headless Horseman. Let's talk about Dullahan. Dullahan are a pretty classic monster, and as such, they're a fun race to play. From older editions in Pathfinder, they're effectively advanced types of undead monsters, specializing in killing humans and not being de-undeadified. They're supposed to be more relentless and unstoppable undead than the undead already are. In D&D, we see them more as being fey in nature, but still with that bloodlust and soul-sapping fervor that we see from their undead counterparts. And I do mean soul-sapping. They really do want to murder people and then take their souls and give them back to the people that summoned them, which I guess is kind of fun. Probably less so for the people that are just casually in the way and get their souls taken, and probably way less so for the people whose souls are supposed to be taken. That's probably not fun at all. Whether they've been sent out by undead minions or demons or fey creatures, the Dullahan is basically an otherworldly bounty hunter, which is probably another good reason not to give fey creatures your full name. The book says that they spend most of their time seeking out the people that they've been sent to murder to take their souls from them, but they don't mind taking the souls of other randomly innocent people along the way. So while they are pretty awesome to play as, I'm not sure how you're going to fit it into the party. Maybe you have like a Ghost Rider situation going on here? Good luck fitting that into your background. Seriously, let me know how that goes. Stat-wise, we're looking at a bonus to strength and wisdom, and they are experts at hunting down their prey and lopping off the heads of those whose names they see fit to speak. And I do mean lopping. Is that the right word? Loping? Clomping? Clamping. No, that's something very different. Chopping. Snicker snack Vorpal sword style. Like Gonskis. Let's break this down a little bit more. Regardless of whether you want to pull your background from the Dullahan, the Headless Horseman, or Dark Riders, the Highwaymen, or women. I really should have put all those in the intro. Oh well. Hey, by the way, I learned something. Headless Horsewoman. Totally a thing. That's kind of awesome. Where was I? Oh yeah. Regardless of what you want to call them, they are meant to do massive damage. Like take your head clean off type of damage, which is kind of fun. But it does come with some strange disadvantages, like gold. And I honestly don't fully understand why their weakness is gold, but if you can figure that out, please let me know down in the comments. But they have it. They have this weakness to gold. It blows through all their resistances and immunities, regardless of whether they are the undead immunities or the fey immunities. It gets really complicated. Gold weakness, which is weird considering that everything else of lore and legend, you cannot buy more time. You can't pay off death to not harvest your soul. But for some reason, if the bounty hunters are after you, throw gold at them. There you go. Weakness to gold weapons, who knew? Another strange weakness, at least in 5th edition, is the inability to speak. For real though, I mean, you give them 120 feet of true sight for not having a head, but for some reason they can't speak. It does say they can understand and know any languages that they knew in life, which to me sounds like that means anybody could become a Dullahan. Which is kind of cool because you can use it like a template, just slap it on anything. But that's also kind of terrifying. Pathfinder on the other side, they start with Common and Sylvan, which makes sense, I guess, except that they're not Fey in Pathfinder. You guys gotta get your shit together on this one.
Seriously, is it supposed to be undead or fey? I mean, if it's an undead fey creature, fine, but just put it in both books.
It's the same thing. If you do want to go the no speaking route, that's really fun from an RP standpoint, but it would also make spellcasting really tough and maybe impossible. It would counterbalance the amount of melee bonus damage they get, something you should definitely talk to your DM about. I have done things in the past with it being an undead construct that they can find other heads, so this would work pretty well for the Dullahan if they have another skull, or maybe that's the purpose of the pumpkin that allows them to speak. That could be a fun way to do it, but if you do the no speaking thing, it does remove the ability to call out somebody's name and then murder them horribly. Let's talk about that in a minute. First thing first, every version I've found of the Headless Horseman have a bonus damage type applied to their weapons. In Pathfinder, they're proficient with all simple slashing weapons and inflict bonus cold damage with these simple slashing weapons. And they also have a higher crit chance, which will probably come into play later. As for D&D, they gain bonus necrotic damage, which is odd because they aren't undead creatures in 5e. Let's just split the difference down the middle and say that if you're holding a slashing weapon, they do an additional d8 of damage, ice, fire, necrotic, depending on the flavor of your torso, per 5 levels. It's a big chunk of damage, but with the slashing limitation and the hard-on for noodle knocking or head displacement, Sweeney Todd bullshit. Long story short, they should be hitting very, very hard. There's also something missing. In some of the iterations of the Headless Horseman mythos, they have a whip made out of the bones of human spines, which, first off, doesn't make any sense. But two, is a whip a slashing weapon? I mean, it kind of is, but can you decapitate someone with a whip? Maybe it has to be like a chain whip. Mythbusters did that flying guillotine thing, but... Rugby, do we still have Simon Belmont's phone number? Well, go get it. Talk to your DM about chain whips. So basically, there's a few situations where the Dullahan in Van Richten's guide, which is meant to be a big baddie, can just straight up kill you. And looking at that it's a level 18 creature, that kind of makes sense. As it stands, after confirming a critical hit, the creature must make a DC 15 Constitution save or get their head lopped off, which kills you, just in case. The only stipulation being that it only works if you do have a head. And if not, I don't know, maybe you're fighting an ooze or something, it just does an additional 68 damage. And I think that's really where we can work something out for this for a PC character. Player character? That's not how that works. What that reads to me is that on a critical hit, the Dullahan should be able to do an additional D8 of damage per 3 levels. And if the attack would reduce the character to 0, they have to make a DC 15 save or die. The head just boop, pops right off. And that makes way more sense in the Pathfinder because they don't have the death saves, or if you're using the massive damage rule.
Side note, this is additional precision damage. You don't double it for a critical. You get it on a critical. Pretty fancy.
It at least gives you a flavorful decapitation with a scaling damage multiplier, instead of having to do something like a called shot every single time. So adding up the bonus damage plus the critical chance, extra bonus damage on crits, makes sense that they should be able to huge, massive death blows. Some of their other abilities include things like the Frightening Presence, which works well regardless. I mean, any creature within 30 feet of the Dullahan must make a DC Wisdom saving throw equal to 8 plus your proficiency plus your charisma modifier, or be frightened for a round. After that, they can't be frightened again until the next day, and if they save, they save. That's pretty standard. Taking that a step further, they also have something called the Headless Wail, or the Shrieking Laughter. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Whatever made Mr. Toad poo himself on the bridge. I might be mixing my metaphors and movies. Either way, it's effectively once per day as a standard action. Every creature within 10 feet of the Dullahan must make a DC 15 Wisdom save, which is once again based off the charisma and proficiency of the creature, just like the Frightening Presence, or they take 3d10 psychic damage. And the Dullahan gains 10 temporary hit points from this if at least one creature is hit. Mind you, it does not stipulate that they are only enemies, so all creatures have to make this save, and as long as a creature takes damage, which I love. It's effectively concentrating the fear aura, and that's awesome. I do think if I was running it, I would probably do it as a 1d10 per 5 levels, and you could also play around with the amount of times per day you can do it with, maybe once per short rest. I would say if you're doing it that way, you only gain HP based on how much damage you deal, and that is to say, how much you roll. I'm not into the whole, I hit a rat for 1 damage, and since there's a bag of 50 rats, I gain 50 hit points. I see you, 3.5. You should be ashamed of yourself. Bag of rats. As for the other abilities, they can effectively summon a ghost horse whenever they want, at all times, as an action. Ghost horse. So it makes sense whether they're Fae or undead. Like both of those things, just like, it's beautiful. They have immunity to sleep, charm, poison, resistance to all weapon damage that isn't magical or golden, which once again makes sense if you're an undead or a Fae bounty hunter. Everything about these massive horse units. Wait, what? That did not come out right. Just makes sense within their own lore, which is actually kind of cool for once. Really simple conversion for a player character. Some things to think about. While yes, you can summon one horse at a time, it is effectively the spell Summon Mount. Takes a standard action to summon, and you get a war-trained heavy horse with fiendish traits. I don't know, maybe like goat horns or something. Pretty great. I would argue that they have to be the only ones that can ride it, with some exceptions, like maybe they can have someone else ride it with them. Definitely talk to your DM about that. I really like the idea of summoning like spectral war horses, appear like they're on fire all the time. Let's see if the bard wants to ride that one. You know what I mean, or maybe not. I don't know. Don't Google that. Whatever. What am I doing with my life? If you go the undead route, I highly suggest playing them as a construct version, which I talked about in my how to play undead video. Basically, you don't have a constitution score, which basically means you don't have to eat, sleep, or breathe, which you have in 5th edition, and yet again are not undead. So I don't know why you just don't play it that way. It also adds the damage from positive energy or healing from negative energy or necrotic damage, which I know a lot of people don't like that in 5th edition, so take it or leave it. But if you do it that way, there's a really cool thing where the Dullahan gets resistance to channeled energy, so it makes them a little tougher against clerics' channel energy in Pathfinder. And in 5th edition, this represents itself as they have advantage on being turned. Any turned undead spell they have advantage on, which is really cool. I like that idea that they're basically very tough undead creatures, even though they're fake creatures. Whatever. Or at least hard to exercise, right? Cursed Bridge, yeah? Sleepy Hollow. Mr. Toad shitting himself? Wait, did Mr. Toad wear pants? All of this just basically makes it a little more fun, and they are a little more vulnerable to death, which seems fair considering that all they have to do is yell your name and then you basically die. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Once per day, the Dullahan can say the name of a creature that they know. They have to know the name, not the creature. Like, they don't friend you on Facebook and then murder you. Well, I guess that would work, though, because that would get your name. That's besides the point. The trick is figuring out that person's name and then saying it. And if the creature fails a fortitude save, based off the charisma and proficiency modifiers again, they basically get staggered for 1d6 rounds, and all attacks made on that creature by the Dullahan are considered critical hits for the next 24 hours, which, as we learned earlier, has a very good chance of just taking your head off. So have fun explaining that to your DM. It's called Death's Calling, by the way. It's a pretty good move. Not going to take responsibility for that one. Thanks for watching, everybody. I feel like I should be enticing people to comment, like, and subscribe. let's do that. And if you have an idea for incentives for, let's say I get like 500 likes on this video, put that in the comments below. Make sure to check out the Patreon page as well as some of the cool stuff that we've been making on Twitch. The links for that are down below. And I might even end the year with a Patreon thank you video. I'm not sure yet. Submit your ideas for that as well. I have a lot of asking for help this week, which is great. Also, remember to keep your dice on the table. And if you're going to go after the souls of some poor defenseless goblin, notice integration raise. Ah, tip. I should have made a Mandalorian reference. Or a Boba Fett reference been better. Oh, gee, wait. Oh my God. Jango Fett totally lost his head, didn't he? How have I not put this together before in the past? Oh, now I feel bad that I didn't think about that. Rugby, make a note. Jango Fett is the Headless Horseman. What do you mean that doesn't make sense? Just write it down.